So we've on to phase 3A. We've got Philip, Harker and Katja presenting.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm on. Yeah.
Hi, again, Philip Harker, Homes England. I'm just going to introduce Katja Stille from Tibbalds, who are our consultant team who've been delivering the planning application for phase 3A, which is the area to the south. You'll probably see another plan, but it's this area here, that being phase 1, phase 2, phase 3A there, and 3B at the top. That's how we've split them up in terms of just our own phasing. So Katja's going to give a presentation, and then we're both here to have questions and answers.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Oh, yeah, no.
No, that's right, you're going the right way.
Okay. I'm also going to be quite quick because also, to be honest, looking around the room, most of you have probably helped us put this planning application together through a series of consultations. So a lot of what I'm saying you will have seen before, you have commented on before. So this is really an update to tell you that we're about to put in an outline planning application for 3A, the area in the south here. We have split 3A and 3B into two applications, two outline applications. We always consulted on both of them, but for various reasons, we feel it is more practical to kind of split them because also they're quite disconnected from each other. So 3A covers 4,000 homes. It will have 2 primary schools and various open space, and I will come and talk a little bit more about the detail. I think it is important to notice it is an outline application, and again I will go into that a little bit more. So it doesn't provide you with all the detail of how the buildings look, where the buildings sit, and it will set the big structural moves and establish the principles. When I look back at this, it's July 18, it's the first time we came and talked to you about this project. And at that point, it was really, like that image shows there, it was kind of scribbling on plans, asking what the communities wanted, what we needed to do, and really asking you for your ideas as well. And hopefully, you will find that a lot of those ideas actually have made it into the application. So we've also had a number of design reviews with Design Council and the Cambridge Quality Panel. And I must say all throughout the consultation, I'm really pleased that we had a lot of support for the proposals we are putting forward. And that is really nice to have. And we had a lot of great ideas, and we have tried to accommodate them as much as possible. However, it's not all great always, there are concerns as well. And hopefully when you see the application, you will find that we have addressed them as much as possible. From beginning, we have heard about flooding, concerns about flooding in Oakington. We have heard about concerns about the access road that will link to Dry Drayton, again about Oakington. We've heard about the need for community facilities, open spaces, and making sure that phase 3A and 3B as well will be connected to the rest of the town and the surrounding villages. So it was a long process, several consultation stages, and it was a really, really great process working with you all. So in terms of community infrastructure, I'm only picking out certain aspects because otherwise I can talk for an hour and we don't have that much time. So 2 primary schools, and that is the purple blobs there. And then we will have a local center, which is right in the heart of the site. We have sports facilities, play facilities, sports hubs. We also have obviously a range of houses, as you kind of know that it's 4,000 homes, so there will be something for everyone. We also have land for faith facilities and remembrance garden. That is all tied and set out in the application. But not only on-site provision, but also making provision to the health facilities and also the secondary school expansion and the SNE in phase 2 in the town center. So while we are adding another 4,000 homes to the town center, we're making sure that the town center, which is already designed for 10,000 homes, actually gets the additional support as well. what is important and was always important to us, that it is not just homes, that actually people can work there. And the way we work is changing dramatically. And we are not actually thinking of workplaces anymore like there's a business park and there's your home. It is much more integrated nowadays, and that's how we have designed this application and the master plan as well, so that employment and housing is integrated. We have set aside some areas where buildings will be flexible, so people can set up a corner shop or an office in the future, because we are talking about many years. So for this to grow, be constructed. And at this point, I mean, I don't want to kind of tell people what they have to do in 10 or 15 years. So the application is being designed to be flexible, so we can accommodate changes over time, and that people can change their lifestyle and actually kind of set up businesses if they want to. In terms of open space, that was always something really important. From day one, we wanted to retain as much of the existing woodlands as possible. You know, you will be familiar with all the woodlands around the edges and the military lake, and they are being retained. They're important not just for people, but actually for the ecology as well. We have, from day one, we always had much more open space than policy requires. We are having 37.5% more open space than policy would ask us to deliver. And that is because we wanted to create a place where people can be active on their doorstep. So you don't have to drive to the playing fields. You kind of don't have to walk very far to your next green space, so that it's very, very integrated. And also from the first consultation, people asked, can we have a big space, a green space in the center? Can we have spaces that are sitting amongst the housing? Because phase 2 and phase 1, the large open spaces are on the edges. So we try to do it slightly different here and bring the open space into the center of the development. Very key is also reinstating the historic lane, or road actually. There used to be a road linking Oakington and Longstanton called Mill Road. And we have reinstated that, not as a road, but as a pedestrian and cycling, as a greenway as well. So making connections better. Net gain, here again, we always try to kind of do as good as possible. And policy requires us to improve by 10%. Actually, we have achieved 15% of net gain on the site in terms of biodiversity. And that's because we have retained a lot of the existing features and a lot of the woodlands, and they're going to be improved as well. We're also maximizing and trying to maximize the ecological value of everything in the development. I mean, you will know developments where you go to and there's a bit of grass or lawn. Doesn't have any value in terms of biodiversity. But our landscape architects have really tried very hard to design spaces that are good for people as well as for the ecology. In terms of movement, again, I'm going to give you the headlines. Everything will be in much more detail in the application. And not that much has changed. I mean, we do know that we need the Southern Access Road East that links from Northstowe to Oakington to Dry Drayton. We won't need it in the beginning, but we will need it at some stage. We have set up a movement network that allows buses not only to come through the site on the CGB, so which is kind of taking that route and then going into the town center, which is there, and then into phase 1, but actually having the opportunity to have local buses coming into the site in terms of loops. We have retained the option to create a bus link between Oakington and Northstowe as well. And above all, I think we have tried to really make it accessible by bikes and pedestrians. That was the key priority, that people can get around easily on bikes and on foot. And that is kind of a diagram that explains the cycling strategy. in a lot of studies, people have found that if we have good, segregated and bicycle-friendly routes every 250 meters in a grid form, then people are actually much more likely to cycle. So along all our primary and secondary streets, we will have segregated cycle routes, as it is also in phase 2. Then we will have in all the open spaces, there will be car-free cycle routes. And we have done a plan which will be in the application, which shows that you can actually on foot, on bike, get very safely from the schools to the schools, so that you actually don't need to go along the main roads. And then there are obviously a lot of kind of, which we hope will be kind of pedestrian and cycle-friendly streets, the residential streets as well. Obviously, the master plan and an outline application is not the end. That is actually a big step, but it's only the beginning of a lot of detailed design work and more consultation. I come to the parameter plans in a moment, but again, as phase 2, this is an outline application, and below that there will be a design code that will control further detail. And for example, the public realm, the townscape, way buildings work, and so on. So, and that will breach the gap between a very strategic application and the detailed design work. Homes England is committed to Building for Life 12, so that assessment will happen on all the applications, committed to retain the kind of master developer role as they're doing on phase 2, and really also looking for the right kind of development partner that buys into their vision and the vision of North Stowe, but also subscribes and signs up to the design code. And I think Homes England have made a commitment. They are here for the long term. They're not about to run away. So therefore, there's a key interest in retaining the quality. And then something that we talked about a lot, and I mentioned it before, is flexibility. We are talking 2034, I think, to complete the whole town. So that's a long time away. So things can change. Also the way we travel can change, or the way we live can change, the way we work can change. So we are signing up and promoting a kind of monitor and manage approach, which really means to kind of continue monitoring what is happening and managing the impact. For example, I would like to see that, but that might not happen. We monitor the way, how many people have cars. So at the moment, the policy requirement, as you know, is kind of 2 spaces per home. I would hope at some time maybe it goes down when there are better public transport linkages. And we will monitor that so we can adapt that. We can see how people move around and again kind of respond to that. Or how many people take up some of the flexible space, so for working as well as living. And to provide or make sure that this is not just a dormitory place, that people not only come here to sleep. We have identified flexible land use zones, and in those areas, buildings will be designed to be flexible so they can be swapped from residential on the ground floor to an office, to a shop, to a nursery, depending on what the community needs and what people think they kind of can do in terms of enterprise. It's a bit light, but this is one example. So that's an illustrative master plan, which we have drawn, and that could be one way this place could be built out. But that's not what we are applying for. At the moment, we are applying for this, which is a diagram in many ways and sets out the key strategic moves. So it identifies the key movement corridors, it identifies the extent of the development, it tells us the broad locations of the primary schools, the local center, the 2 key spaces, and then also the kind of big linear lake. And it also identifies the areas where we think, from an urban design and placemaking point of view, the areas that are most suitable for different and more mixed land uses. And I think that is something quite important to keep in mind when you look at the applications as well, that there are different levels. Some things are really fixed, and those plans will be fixed, and other things are kind of principles, are well, we have a whole document that sets out design principles, which is bullet points, which sets out what we sign up to and achieve, but it doesn't talk about the detailed design. Very quick. There is 3B. We continue working on 3B. So on this one, we anticipate it will come in spring 2020. So a couple of months after 3A. I mean, that is because we really focused on 3A and put our energy into that. And now we are going to focus on 3B and moving that forward. I think this is my last slide, but I just want to say that, I mean, the application goes in, I think Andrew has counted, it's 9,000 pages, something like that. So I don't think probably anyone is going to read all of them other than Andrew. But I mean, there are a number of key documents, which is the design and access statement, the planning statement, and I expect you might be interested in the transport assessment as well. So I would say, you know, those are probably the documents, and particular design and access statement and planning statement that gives you an overview. And then depending on your interest, pick out the documents you need to read. Because, yeah, 9,000 pages. But it will be a big new neighborhood. There will be a lot of people living in there, so it's important that we get that right and we consider everything. So that was a quick update.
Thank you, Katja. Hilary?
Hi. Just asking about, I'm not quite sure what the government said, but has the government committed to being sort of carbon neutral by 2030? They've made some statement about 2030. How does this master plan and North Stowe 3B and 3A, because they're the later phases, how are they going to be flexible enough to adapt to the requirements that might come down the line in terms of, you know, sort of carbon neutral and sort of, you know, tougher regulations?
Do you want to take that, Philip?
So the application is going to be submitted very shortly for 3A and then 3B to follow. And within that, we beat current policy requirements for sustainability and energy and carbon. So that's already we're leading the way in what we're actually proposing. And then obviously, as things progress, the building regulations will be tightening up as future reserve matter applications come forward, which will be in line with government's targets to achieve what it wants to achieve.
Okay, question from Glyn, John at the back.
Hi, Philip, probably don't sit down just yet. I understand these are long processes. It's slightly surreal seeing the plans for 3A and 3B when there isn't a single home yet on phase 2, which is quite interesting. And you mentioned that I think you said 2034 for the town to be complete. And earlier it was mentioned that current build-out rate is 250 homes a year. So that implies that, you know, to get to 10,000 homes by 2034, you'd probably have to, I think, at least treble that build-out rate, wouldn't you? Is that what? And so I guess one question is that the plan? Is that really feasible? And also, how is the phasing going to work with phase 2 and phase 3? And don't forget phase 2 as you get excited by your new project, or even though it looks great.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me like this?
Yes.
Okay, let's just do this. So the phasing, well, the build out at the moment is only on phase 1. So that's what phase 1 is sort of achieving, 200. Maybe it might get to sort of 225 or maybe 250 per year. It'd be great if it did. When we layer on phase 2 and phase 3, and that's one of the reasons why we're bringing forward the applications for phase 3 now as well, is so we can actually build out in multiple locations at multiple times, so we can actually achieve a higher and accelerated pace of delivery. And as the government's housing agency, one of our tasks is to accelerate delivery and to shake up that housing market. One of the other key things that we're doing on our application for 3A is delivering a high, a policy compliant affordable homes aspect. So again, we've done that, exceeded that on phase 2. So we are here to try to bring forward affordable homes. We're here to try to bring forward homes at an increased pace of delivery. And one of the ways we can do that is by having the town build out multiple locations at multiple times, but in an ordered fashion. So we're not conflicting as we do that. So we've got phasing plans and ideas of how we'll phase that delivery in those in that approach as well. And we won't forget phase 2 because we're building it out. We are the master developer and we're building it out. And obviously we brought forward enabled delivery of the secondary school by releasing that land and getting that brought forward as quickly as it could be. We haven't got our first home on phase 2 yet, but Urban Splash are our first developer, and they're going to be planning in February. Hopefully they'll get that planning committee in February. Hopefully they'll get an approval, and hopefully they'll be on site in March, starting to do their groundworks with modular homes, which you can order online, order with them, completely configure your home and have it how you want it, and they'll start coming forward really quickly. So the pace of delivery will be really good.
Oh, hi. You had on the slide off-site mitigation against biodiversity. What exactly does that mean?
So we've purchased land which is about, I can't remember if it's 5 miles or 5 kilometres as the crow flies, out in the fen where we are creating habitats for farmland birds. So the only thing we've really sort of displaced on site is farmland birds, because a lot of the site at the moment was what used to be after the airfield sort of stopped being used, was sort of used as farmland. So we've had tenant farmers on the site, and so the part of the ecology has been farmland birds, and so we've recreated those habitats, in fact enhanced habitats in the fenland landscape to promote that farmland bird habitat for them.
So any particular reason why we didn't benefit from it and it's been off-sited to the fens? Could it not have been done something locally for us?
So we've got a small area of land which is to the south of 3A, which is being utilised because it was in our land ownership, but we're talking large areas, so we've had to buy large sort of fields to achieve this.
We're going to take one more question from Rosie, and then because it's nearly 9 and we still got officially 2 items, I'm just going to make that the last question, if that's okay, and if you guys could speak to Philip at the end.
Not even really a question, just say, I think not just on my own behalf, but we think this is really exciting, and I really appreciate the approach that you're taking. I know it's easier in the promising and exciting planning stage, but we're really excited about seeing lots of this built out. So thanks for all you've been doing.
That's great.
Thank you. Great.